The atmosphere, the computer model, it mimics the atmosphere and how it moves the aerosols around, smoke and so forth, dust, noxious chemicals. And you can see a relatively clean picture of the air if that's the information that you put into the computer model. I'm reading some of my other notes I wrote down to see if I had any other questions. So I didn't want to skip anything here. But there was no information on specific weather. That's about all the questions I have right now. Let's talk about inversions, atmospheric inversions. So what is that? I mean, we're given information on it, probably don't know what that is. Well, the atmosphere generally cools down as you go up. One of those sheets that I passed around kind of shows the temperature profile of where that temperature line starts to change and where that inversion layer is. But it generally cools as you go away from the ground, and however, an atmospheric inversion occurs when the air above is warmer than the air below. So these inversions act to cap the lower atmosphere. They could be several hundred feet above the ground, thus trapping any pollutants below it. They can be over 1,000 feet above the ground. So this stack with emissions with a high velocity pushes these pollutants up, these emissions up, and it hits an inversion above it. Where's it going to go? It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay right there. And these, we'll get to the topography in a minute. During a clear night, let's talk about one nocturnal inversion. The air near the ground is coldest, and a nocturnal inversion begins soon after sunset. The bottom of the inversion is easily seen because wood smoke emitted from chimneys or a power plant would rise to a level and then spread out horizontally. You've seen this in the valley where the temperature rises, and these inversions can be hundreds of feet or over 1,000 feet. An inversion from a warm front approaching occurs when warm air, which is lighter than the cold air, advances due to some wind aloft. Generally from the south, and often the height of the warm front inversion will be located at the base of the cloud, the lower end of the cloud, the underbelly. As the warm air moves above the cold dome of air, it slowly erodes the cold dome and the cloud deck lowers. So picture this plant burning, and running here, and there's a warm front coming in on that day, and the inversion layer is just lowering and lowering and lowering. Where's it going to go? There is no question from a meteorological standpoint that emissions from the proposed power plant would often be trapped at very low levels in Russell and even Westfield due to any inversion situation. Topography. I want to note that if the facility were on top of Mount Greylock, the pollutants would travel in mid-level winds and would cause ozone problems hundreds of miles away instead of having a local impact. Maine, Vermont, eastern Massachusetts, that's where the ozone would eventually affect there. The Westfield River runs northwest to southeast. There's a school, as you just heard, right here, 1,600 feet from the location. This one, yeah, right. The prevailing wind is northwesterly. The mountains and hills on either side of the watershed act as a wind tunnel, directing the wind and channeling the pollutants eastward towards Westfield. But note that when the wind is absent, like tonight, there can be varying wind currents. These are mountains here and valleys. The wind can change direction. So the wind could come here to this school. They could go to your house if you live close by. Low-level transport of the emissions from a wood-burning facility at the proposed location would be a common occurrence due to the prevailing surface wind. This wind between Turtleback and Shadrack Mountains would transport pollutants from the site southeastward along the Westfield River between Punchbowl and Nero Mountain to the southwest and Toccoa Mountain to the northeast. It couldn't really be a worse scenario for the location of the proposed plant and the topography. So the result is simple: higher levels of pollutants for all residents to breathe in the city of Westfield and Russell, especially south and east of the site. This means an increased exposure to often unseen chemicals which can aggravate asthma, and those with respiratory issues. I've given this issue a lot of thought. I can appreciate the entrepreneurial outlook of Mr. Hall and his constituents in trying to create a better fuel, a better way to produce energy. By using my meteorological expertise, it comes down to location, location, location. And I don't have time to do to speak about a 100-year flood and what that would do structurally to Mr. Hull's proposed plants. That will happen at some point. But Mr. Hull has chosen very poorly the location for this. The hopes and the prayers of my family is that God's providence will guide you, the DTE, and all those involved, state and local officials, in your decisions, and that the winners are here in this community that appreciate the breath of fresh air. Thank you.
Thank you.